Call me in the order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
You out.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I want to welcome everybody. If you've got your phones on, please put them on silent. Commissioner Reed, it's your turn for the prayer.
Thank you, God, for bringing us together today. Thank you for all of your many blessings, and thank you for the rain. Amen.
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 Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, roll call. I'm starting with Commissioner Reed.
Here.
Mr. Culberson. Here. Commissioner Stephen.
Here.
Commissioner Smith here, and Commissioner Dove.
Here.
Thank you. Public comment. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the governing body that is not on the agenda? Oh, that's a first. Okay. We'll move on down to administrative business. Mark, do you have anything?
I have a couple of things today, Commissioners, and if you'll entertain it, I would like to go a little bit out of order.
Okay.
And that would be the Fort Leavenworth EMS discussion, since we have representation from the Fort here today. As you know, we've been meeting with the Fort for a while, trying to work out a new agreement for EMS services, and the board granted them a 30-day extension, which goes through the end of this month. With everything that's going on at the federal level, it's been a challenge to make progress on that, so the Fort has asked if we could grant an extension, and I think that would be prudent for us, given we've had some challenges as well, as we know, working through the federal shutdown. And Colonel Sunday is here. Would like to, if you'd like to give a little background, and if you have any questions.
Welcome, Colonel.
Hi, good morning, everybody. I've already had the honor of meeting Mr. Smith and Mr. Culberson, and I'm glad to be here today to introduce myself to the rest of you. I'm Todd Sunday. I'm the Garrison Commander for Fort Leavenworth. I assumed command in July. And, I just come here to address the group and talk about how important the ambulance issue is to us. My job as a Garrison Commander is to provide for the life and safety for the 6,000 residents that are there every night, as well as all the people who come there to work during the day. And then part of my job is also to help the prison, the disciplinary barracks. And the ambulance is a key part of the certification for that prison. I say these things not to make it the county's problem. I say them to impress upon you how important resolving this issue is to me. I am the Garrison Commander. I will be here through July of 27. I know a lot of the issues has been the changing of faces, which is common in the military, but I have the next over a year and a half to work this issue, and it's critically important. And so we just ask for more time and some patience with us, and I appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
And I'm ready to answer questions that you might have.
Questions?
Other military installations obviously have the same situation with needing to have ambulance service from either private or civilian sources. How's that handled across the system?
Yes, sir. We have looked through, and really we've looked through the Army solutions, and what we have found so far is that we are in a unique situation. There are several garrisons that do not have clinics that had that ambulance services provided, but we have not stood up a new one of those in several years. Most of the other installations, small installations, have either no cost agreements or something with the county. And so we can't find a similar agreement. And what we have provided the county is what we call an intergovernmental service agreement, which is the way that the U.S. Army enters in an agreement with local government to provide services. And this is a format to formulate your request so that we can forward it up to the approval chain, which, for everybody's knowledge, is not at the garrison. It's actually going to have to go up probably somewhere within the Secretary of the Army level or one of his principal deputies.
Any other questions?
I have a question. Thank you, Colonel, for being here. I like your last name.
Thank you.
My wife's first name is Sunday. I wonder what would happen if my last name was Sunday. Goodness.
There's a lot of Sundays.
Yes, it is, a lot, and she's a lot of person. Are you familiar with any other arrangements that have been made or have this particular problem, such as Fort Riley? How are they going through this transition with the government shutdown?
So, sir, as far as I know, Riley has its own service. At least that's what we've been able to figure out.
Okay.
And, you know, we're all in sort of the same sort of situation. Either the government has to provide services themselves, or they enter into an agreement based on services rendered with the local community. And I understand the situation with the county, with the tax revenue situation, or at least the budget shortfall for the EMS. And we're cognizant of that and the burden that it's placing on the county. But I'm not aware of a situation, at least in any Army garrison, where the garrison or the Army pays for the services without the services being rendered or reimbursed through the insurance company.
Okay. Thank you very much, Colonel. We do appreciate you coming and appreciate your service, sir.
Any other questions? Colonel, how long, what kind of extension are you looking for? Is that on the table yet, or?
We have not asked for a specific date, sir, but I mean, with the government shutdown, as long as is feasible. I would think like a 6-month extension could be possible. I think that is a realm of possibility.
Okay. Mark?
Well, Commissioners, obviously your decision, you granted a 30-day extension already. I think at a minimum, I would suggest through the end of the year, just because we don't know when the government shutdown is going to go. But I think we need to have an agreement in place prior to, I think it's May of next year is when the budget is authorized, the new budget's authorized. So I think we would need to have an agreement in place well before then.
Colonel, is everybody okay to the first of the year? And that way, if something does come up, you can report back to us. We don't know how this is going to play out right now. We understand it. We feel it out here too. So,
well, could that also be extended to 30 days after the government shutdown ends?
well, that's what I'm saying with 60 days. I think that'll cover it. If not, we can come back in session anytime and add on to it if we want to. I think what's happening is they're trying to give some time up here for y'all to work through this. And I think we've had some serious meetings in the last year. I don't think we had any serious ones before that. It's like pass the buck, and now you end up with it, Colonel, which we appreciate you attending our meetings. But I think I see some movement now. So a little bit of time for them, and with everything that's going on in the country, I don't think 60 days is too much to ask.
I would like to honor his request for 6 months, which I think would put us maybe around April 30th.
I can't do 6 months. The reason, let me just ask one thing. The reason I didn't go 6 months, because it may end up being 6 months, is because I think this can be brought back to us in a timely manner, and I think the Colonel would agree that can be brought back to us in a timely manner, and we can keep forward from there. 6 months is 6 months, and we've got a problem too, along with the military on what's going on about the shutdown. So I understand that if you want to make that motion, that's fine, but I think to the end of the year, 60 days is fine with me. Commissioners? What else do you think?
Well, maybe we need to talk, have a little walk down memory lane on how we've gotten to this point. And maybe Commissioner Culberson, you are more equipped to give us that walk down memory lane.
So I would not be recommending a 6 month, just simply because I've been working on this with the fort now for 3 years. And I understand, and my dad had a saying, I know it's not your fault, but it's your problem. And so every time we would give like a 6 month extension, there was no work done on it. And then the 6 months would end, and then they would say, well, let's start over again. And then we'd give another 6 month extension. So we've been given extensions for 3 years now. The only time we've got some serious meetings going on is when we got to the end of the contract and only gave a 30-day extension. So it seems like 30-day extensions are the only way we're actually getting some work done on this by the fort.
Mike, you have anything to comment?
Well, the only thing I would add is if we did not have a government shutdown, my position would be that we're at an impasse and we need to move ahead with other measures because we've been dealing with this for a long time. It predates you, and it has nothing to do. You have no responsibility for it, but it is the fact you're now been put in this position. But because of the government shutdown, I'm willing to agree to the end of the year. But we're in a position where the taxpayers are demanding that we look out for their interests.
Willie, you have anything to add?
And I would agree with an extension because of the government shutdown, but
because of the government
as short as possible.
Shutdown as short as possible, ending in end of the year.
Yeah. Vanessa, you okay with that? I know you're not, but are you?
Commissioner Culbertson, I feel like this is just me, but I feel like you might be kind of frustrated with this situation.
I would be too.
After 3 years of getting nothing out of it, yeah.
Do you want, does the board want to try someone different in that position? Do you think a change would help or not?
Change in what?
In negotiation, do you want another commissioner to give it a shot? Do you want to keep at it?
No, I don't want out of the situation. I want the fort to take it seriously finally.
Okay.
I think with the history that Jeff brings in and that he brought me on last year on this, I think it's important to keep the players. I think we're a little further down on negotiations than we've ever been. And so I'd make a motion that we continue the EMS services to Fort Leavenworth to the end of the year.
Second.
Motion second. Any more discussion? Commissioner Reed?
Aye.
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 All righty. And Commissioner, someday maybe. Colonel, if it gets to the point where you need to stay in correspondence with the course mark, but if it gets to the point where things are getting worse than better with the shutdown, please just make time to visit with us all up here so we can talk about this again.
Thank you.
Thank
I look
you.
forward to the next meeting. We'll be in touch to schedule it. We've cleared it with our lawyers that this, there is some guidance that we're not to engage with, our congressional leaders during the shutdown for whatever.
Right.
But this is accepted. This is key, and this is essential to the operations of the fort. So I'm free to have whatever communications with the commission.
That's
or
great.
its representatives that you.
That's great. We appreciate you coming out today. Thank you. Good seeing you again.
Thank you, Colonel.
Mark, do you have something else?
We have on the administrative business, the county clerk will not be able to come up today. She's working on some stuff that's related to the election, I believe. We have an appointment. Currently, Commissioner Dove is our representative on the NECAP board. The reappointment comes up. It's actually for next year. It's in January, but they only meet one more time before then. Right. So they'd like to have your appointment to consider at that next board meeting. So today, if you could decide if you're going to reappoint Commissioner Dove or if somebody else is going to.
Will you want to stay on it?
Are you re-interested?
You want to stay on it?
I'm fine with it.
Okay.
I move that we reappoint Commissioner Dove to the NECAP board.
Second.
Motion and second discussion. Commissioner Reed?
Aye.
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 Abstain.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. Mark, anything else?
You have a review of Operation Greenlight, the Veterans Proclamation review. It'll be on next week, I believe, if it's approved today. But by your policy, each proclamation comes before you.
I have no problem with it. Anybody else?
No problem with that.
Okay. Do we need a motion on that, Mark? Just give you direction.
Just need
Consensus.
It'll be on next week.
Okay. Okay.
And then the last thing, the local consult meetings with KDOT. The last one was last night, the virtual one. I think that Leavenworth County in general was well represented on all of them. And we were able to get our top projects, which were the interchanges on K7 at Fairmount and Leavenworth Road, were number one, I think, in every consult meeting, including the virtual one last night. So I think that works well for us. Obviously, that's just one portion of the score. So then, and I think they reiterated 5 or 6 times last night. Just getting the vote doesn't mean you get the money. It just means that we're talking about it. So, but I think we're well represented at each meeting, and it worked out in Leavenworth County's favor and in the communities of Leavenworth County as well.
Good. Anything else, Mark?
That's all I have.
Vanessa, do you have anything? Jeff? Go ahead. Okay. Just one thing I'd like to add. Great Cause has been the overseeing, or been part of, not the Port Authority, but part of the group that keeps everybody updated. My last meeting last Tuesday, it was unanimous that they asked Bill to try to keep updates on stuff for the entire county. I talked to, because of the way he presents himself and thing he does. On top of that, truth be known, Bill's been the supplier of the information anyway. So I talked to Bill, and he was willing to do that. And I also talked with Mark, so I just wanted to let y'all know, because we don't need a vote, that Bill will have that information. He'll be back to us when it's necessary. So I think it's good to have a county employee on that. So
That's the infrastructure committee, I think.
yeah, it's infrastructure.
Majority.
Yeah. Okay, if that's with that, I'll consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Motion is second. Any discussion?
No
Mr.
discussion.
Reed?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Formal board action, Resolution 2025-35, a rezoning request from RR-5 to RR-2.5. Good morning.
All right, PCE 25095 is a request to rezone the parcels at 18735 and 0000 Metro Avenue from RR5 to RR2.5. The future land use map has these areas designated as both residential 2.5 acres and 3 units per acre. Obviously, the 3 units per acre is a higher density than the RR 2.5. However, there is not sufficient utilities out there to be able to develop at that density. So staff did recommend approval of this request as it best matched the future land use map and the capabilities of development within that area. The Planning Commission did consider this request at their October meeting, and they recommended on a vote of 8-0 to approve this request. Do you let me know if you have any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve that the rezoning request complies with the golden factors and move to adopt Resolution 2025-35 and approve the rezoning as outlined in case DEV 25-095 based on the recommendation of the Planning Commission and finding as set forth in the staff report.
Second. Motion is second. Discussion? Oh, it looked pretty good to me. Okay, I'll start the roll call. Commissioner Reed?
Aye.
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 Aye. Sound like everybody.
There you go, Willie. Okay.
Got a salute.
You wanted to get that vote in, didn't you? Okay, Resolution 2025-36, a rezoning request from RR5 to RR2.5.
All right, KCED 25014 is a request to rezone the parcel at 16164 174th Street. This parcel in the future land use map is identified for residential 2.5 acres. It is also adjacent to the south of an existing residential RR 2.5 zoning district, so this would just be expanding that zoning district north. Staff did recommend approval based off of the golden factors and the fact that it did comply with the future land use map. The Planning Commission did consider this at their October meeting and again recommended approval on an 8-0 vote to this body.
And the property to the south was recently rezoned.
It was recently.
Zoned at RR 2.5 is in compliance. Okay. Questions? Go ahead, Mike.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that the rezoning request complies with the golden factors and move to adopt Resolution 2025-36 and approve the rezoning as outlined in case DEV 25-104 based on the recommendation of the Planning Commission and the findings as set forth in the staff report.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion?
Nope.
Commissioner Reed?
Aye.
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 Aye. Willie?
Aye. I was out of order. Sorry.
I'm kidding.
Let's do it again.
Don't
Okay.
do it again.
I can't keep track of you guys anyway. Now you're going to do this thing. Okay, item number C, consider a motion to approve a service contract with page 44 LCC for case DEV 25120, planning and zoning parcel, record and subdivision scanning project, the amount of $28,487. Morning, Jeff.
Morning, Commissioners.
I mean, Joe. I mean, John.
I know it's
Let's
try that again.
John, I told him this morning when I was running so far behind, everything I've done has taken me 3 tries. So no offense. I've known you 30 years. No offense.
Not an issue.
Go right ahead, guy.
So this service contract is to complete a one-time scanning project to move the remaining files that Planning and Zoning has in Public Works out of that particular space so they can reuse that space for additional staff. We secured 4 different bids for this, the low bid being $28,487 through page 44. And with that, I'd answer any questions.
This is the one that Register of Deeds is bringing
The
forward on
Register of
this.
Deeds actually
Brought this
cleared
up to
funds
us.
for this.
Right.
Sent it back to, I believe, the BOCC Tech Fund, if I'm correct in that. So
Okay.
we're requesting those funds, or a portion of those funds, to fund this particular
Okay.
project.
Go ahead, Mike.
Is this a Kansas-based company?
This company, I believe, is outside of Kansas.
You know where it's from? I don't have it right in front of me today.
Right, I believe this one is out of Illinois, if I remember correctly, but most of these were bid outside of Kansas.
Okay.
But it
Because
was
we just
bid.
don't have.
Were there any bids that came from a Kansas?
There weren't there wasn't any companies capable in the metro area of accomplishing this particular
Okay.
task. So we did send it out to the metro area, we just didn't get a response.
Good question, Mike. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
Move that we approve a service contract with Page 44 LLC or LCC for case DEB 25-120, planning and zoning parcel record and subdivision scanning project in the amount of $28,487.
Okay, motion and a second. Any more discussion? Commissioner Ready?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
There we go.
We're on a roll
Going
now.
good today.
Okay. Thanks, John. Consider a motion to authorize the chairperson to sign the clinical agreement between Kansas University Physicians, Inc. and Leavenworth County. Morning, Jamie.
Good morning, Commissioners. Before you is a clinical agreement from Kansas University Physicians, the OBGYN clinic. This allows for the maternal health to happen out at the health department. This is for the pregnancy program, for us to have OBGYN care and clinics, and also allows us then to have connection into KU so the deliveries can happen down at KU.
Questions?
I had a question, I forgot what it was.
Okay. Anybody else?
No.
Okay. Then I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve and authorize the chairperson to sign the clinical agreement between Kansas University Physicians, Inc. and Leavenworth County.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any more discussion? Commissioner Reed?
Aye.
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 There you go.
Good job, Willie.
That's just, you have one job. Okay.
Moving right along.
Item
Right
F.
along.
Consider a motion to approve Board Order 2025. No, wait a second. Consider a motion to approve the bid from New York New Frontier Materials for trap rock for 2025-26 in the amount of $58 per ton. Morning, Bill.
Morning, Commissioners. Again, this year we did solicit for bids for our 2026 trap rock season, chip and seal season. As you guys are aware, we had realized a significant savings a couple years ago from switching from haydite to trap rock. This material is harder and heavier, and it does appear to adhere to the surface better. We have had some issues. The number of broken windshields that have been created from this is up a little bit. I believe probably up about 75% from previous materials. We did solicit from both vendors that offer this aggregate. This vendor, the second vendor, elected not to bid on this. I believe it's due to the fact that they generally sell trap rock by the train load, and this vendor sells it by the train car, and so they will make multiple shipments to their rail yard in Kansas City, and then they will ship that via trucking service to our quarry in Tonganoxie. We would have liked to have gotten that second bid. If we could do that in the future, we will definitely try to do that, but and we may be able to reduce the cost, but unfortunately the 15,000 tons that we bid was under apparently what they were interested in bidding this year.
Questions?
How much did we save? It was a fiscal year 25. Was it like 1.2 million?
It was fiscal year 24.
24. Okay.
Yeah, it was approximately $1.2 million.
That was a big savings.
So it was.
That's the government efficiency. But we do appreciate that you were able to identify that. Mike, I do have another question on sort of, not directly on this, but I'm getting a lot of calls on, since it's now wet outside, people are calling about their rock is just on some of the roads. Some of the rock that we've placed on the roads is just deteriorated into mush. That's because of a certain type of rock that's usually used as a base. Can you kind of go through that, explain that?
Well, there's two factors. One, it was dry for an extended period of time, and so we didn't grade a lot of the roads during that period of time. We were finishing chip and seal and the asphalt work for the season, and so a lot of that material that was at the surface could have gotten crushed out with a lot of lime and dirt added into it. Second to that is we have two types of gravel that we primarily use. One's an AB3 material, and that has a lot of fines and just dust in it, basically. And it does bind well and is good until you get a lot of rain or extended periods of drizzle. Generally, in those periods of time, you'll see that rock get pushed down into the surface, and then you'll have that slick slime, lime type surface at the top that does spray up. Unfortunately, the other material that we do use is a screened road rock, but it is considerably more expensive. It is a little bit more than twice as much in cost as the AB3 material, and so we're looking at a difference between approximately $25 a ton and $11.50 a ton for those two different materials. So we try to stretch the budget as far as possible with that AB3 material, and then when we do get into the winter season, we will use that screened rock when it does start to get muddier out. But we have gotten some calls this last week, but not like we will see come January when it starts to go through the freeze-thaw cycles.
And that's what I've received several calls about the road conditions, and what I've told them is, we go through this every year. But we did, I believe it was 3 or 4 years ago, contract out to have some of the rock cleaned at the quarry, correct?
We did that last year. We actually have a stockpile of screened rock at the quarry currently, and we've also negotiated with Hams at the Springdale Quarry to reduce their cost this last year. They dropped it, I believe, $13 a ton when we told them that we would not be purchasing any material from them at their current prices. They did reduce their cost to be more competitive, but at this time we haven't started switching over to that material just yet. We generally wait until we see those freeze thaws. I don't know if the whole board's aware of it. I've given presentations on this in the past, but we're in a zone through the Midwest here that receives the highest amount of freeze thaw cycles. Between just southwest of here and central Iowa, we do receive the most freeze thaw cycles in the entire country, and with that, we tend to have our roads get muddier. And so we try to save that material until November, December, when we start to get into those freeze-thaw cycles, just for budgetary purposes. Ideally, we would use that material more often.
So that's good information. And if a person lives on a road where they're having a particular safety issue with the mud, they should contact the county shop?
Well, they should. If there's safety issues on our roads, they should always contact the county shop to have them get it addressed. I don't know that we've had any concerns about safety. It's generally just cleanliness of vehicles.
Yeah, I've just received several calls. I appreciate your answers, and I think that hopefully people will listen to that.
Yeah, go ahead, Vanessa.
So what would be the financial impact of the windshields then? Like, what percentage of the savings do you think?
I don't have the exact count here today, but I know last year we ran a report at the end of the year, or maybe it was the 2024 season when we realized the savings. I believe it was the 2024 season. It was done by David Van Paris when he was still here because he processed those claims. And we had 26 claims the previous year in 2023, and we had 37 claims that year, I believe, from the
information that he provided me. I can't stand here today and say I can validate those numbers. It was just the numbers he provided to me. I believe this year we're approximately around 43, mid-40s for the number of claims we've received, with those claims ranging in cost primarily in that $500 to $700 range, with a few outliers with these new windshields that have the speed limit holograms. I think we did receive a couple higher claims on some import cars that were maybe $2,500. Generally, those get turned over to the insurance company, and the insurance company makes the determination on those claims on whether they will cover them or not. But Misty could maybe explain more of that information.
Anything else, Vanessa?
No, I don't think so. I just, I know on Tonganoxie that we just opened it, it just seems like there's a lot of loose rock still on that, but it has my attention because my windshield got broken by it. So I don't know that I've used more, normally pay that much attention to a project like that as I have this one, but it's interesting.
Mike, do you have something else?
Just a review with our legal counsel. Can you go over what the liability for local governments is? There's a extremely low liability when it comes to rock.
Yes, I can, and thank you, Commissioner. So generally, just in general terms, the county is not the insurer of the roadway. We do not guarantee a perfect roadway, and there's always going to be road hazards. So normally, if a rock is on the road and it hits a windshield and breaks it while you're driving, the county's not typically liable. In this case, where we had the projects coming on with the trap rock, we saw a high volume of it. We looked at it, and after discussion of what was happening, because the material was harder, we discussed, is there a way to, a best practice we could utilize to help mitigate the damage that was happening, and we did discover there was steps that we could take, and so I think it was fairly a rare situation that we did pay those claims in certain circumstances, not in all circumstances. So in this particular project, I feel confident going forward that we would see less windshields broken with trap rock because of the changes in the practices of how it's being applied. Also, the heat that we had this year, it was a bit of a perfect storm. It was so hot for a period of time that it wasn't allowing the rock to, I guess, gel because it wasn't cooling down at night, so it was not adhering like it should. But with this in mind, I think going forward, it will be better because, we're now on notice that we have to take extra care when we're doing this type of road project.
So typically to have a recovery as far as the state law, the county would have to be directly responsible for the damage.
You could, if you directly caused it,
right,
you would be liable. Or if you were on notice and had an opportunity to cure, a reasonable opportunity to cure and failed, that's in the case usually of a giant pothole or something like that. So it's been reported, you don't fix it in a timely manner, then you might be liable. But each circumstance is different, and so each claim that comes in, we evaluate them. And
but it's not the lottery that if your windshield
correct.
Gets broken, that you can come and collect from the county.
That's correct. It's very rare that someone pays a claim for rock on the roadway hitting the vehicle. That's a assumption of risk we all take when we drive down the road.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Any other questions?
Yes, I'm questioning why would the county pay when the insurer, when the owner of the vehicle has insurance against that? In the past, I've had the same thing happen, and from a rock coming from a truck or a vehicle on a county road, and scratched the windshield, and the insurance company took care of it. So why would we be paying it?
Typically, the county would not pay those claims. You would have to have a series of circumstances that would make the insurance company believe that the county would be liable in that situation. So I think it would be best if we wanted to go through some of the claims that came in. That would be a best discussion for an executive session.
Okay.
But generally, the county is not paying a claim when a rock hits her windshield and breaks it while someone's driving.
Just to clarify, like, not talking about that, like a random driving behind a trailer that has rock in it, one comes out and hits you, or random rock on the roadway from those type of instances, but like this specifically with Tonganoxie, I drove it the first day after it was opened, and it was obvious that it was the material that had been applied to the roadway. It sounded
Very
more
loose.
like you were driving down a gravel road than you were on.
Okay.
And you could see a lot of it sitting on top of the surface loose. So it's different, if that makes sense.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Well, and also, you mentioned that you've put some plans in place that you'll look at a little closer to make sure these kind of things are hopefully cutting down on the claims against us, correct?
That's correct.
Anything else? Okay,
Need a motion?
go ahead, sir.
Motion to approve the bid from New Frontier Materials for trap rock for 2025-2026, the amount of $58 per ton.
Motion and a second. Any more discussion? Mr. Reed?
Aye.
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 There you go. Okay, consider a motion to approve Board Order 2025-13, granting disaster relief tax abatement tax IDs 1-20685 and 1-00898, and tax credits for tax ID 117161, which were substantially destroyed by fire. Morning, Bob.
Morning. Requesting approval of this Board Order 2025-13. Two homes were destroyed by fire, one in 721 and one 727. That's before August 15th, so they're eligible for abatement for 2025 taxes. And then the tax credit was after August 15th, so by law it's only eligible for a tax credit against the next 3 years, if that's what it takes, for the credit on that one.
Questions? Anybody? Okay.
Okay, motion to approve.
Go ahead.
Oh. Motion to approve. See, threw me off.
Yeah, me too.
Motion to approve Board Order 2025-13, granting a disaster relief tax abatement for tax IDs 1-20685, 1-00898, and tax credit for tax ID 1-17161. Looked like an I.
That's what I thought too.
Which were substantially destroyed by fire.
Got a motion, we have a second.
Second.
Motion second, any discussion? Commissioner Reed?
Aye.
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 Jeff, what were you doing over there?
He's messing me up.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Too much fun.
Mm-hmm.
Appreciate it.
That
Presentation.
was simple and easy.
Ooh, okay.
Thanks, Bob.
Thanks. Thanks, Bob.
You're next, Bob.
Did I miss one again?
Where you going?
Now that
What
you're
Fraser
to
saying.
sit down, now we're
Okay.
going to be harder on you.
I was going to wait till you said that.
There's something else going on?
That's on me again, Bob. Go ahead. Quarterly reports.
So we have, this was as of October 23rd, we inspected 8,694 parcels, representing about 26% of all parcels. You can see what that includes for the building permits, for sales validation. We have to inspect properties that sold in our 17% reinspection cycle, and some miscellaneous inspections. It says there are only 128 remaining for the 17%, but as of yesterday, there's only 21 of those left. So about got that wrapped up, a few stragglers. We certified personal property second time in September, all the changes that happened between the first certification and then what went tax bills go out. You can see the categories there. Just due to a state law change, the other non-commercial, most of that will be going away next year. And all that watercraft, down Class 7, the watercraft, all that will be going away this year. That was exempted by the legislature. I think I reported that earlier this year that it didn't pass. I was a little bit premature in that. They did pass that. So all your off-road vehicles, ATVs, golf carts, trailers with a gross weight under 15,000 pounds, all those will be exempt from now on. There was also a bill, so the commercial business machinery and equipment that's on there, that's everything, anything that was purchased on or after July 1st, 2006 is exempt. There was a bill introduced last session, so it's still alive this session, that would do away with the rest of that. It just took away that date, so it just essentially make all business machinery equipment exempt. There will still be a few things under that other non-commercial. There's a few camper trailers that don't qualify, so if you have an RV, if it qualifies for an RV, you pay a fee to get your RV tags, but if it doesn't qualify for that, it still is. Airplanes, although they have two ways to be exempted, they have to go before the Board of Tax Appeals. So most airplanes do get exempted, but that wasn't included in that bill, so we still got to go through that process for aircraft. And there'll probably be some odd ones in it. We actually got a hot air balloon on. We'll still be there, but there's a few odds and ends that will still remain under that other non-commercial, but it won't be much. We have received 1,304 sales through the first 3 quarters. You can see how that compares. We're down a little bit for the number of sales, and that's pretty much what's going on. If you read through most of the country, the number of sales are down. The number of building permits, we had 175. And that's down a little bit. That's through the whole county. That was down a little bit from last year. Not a great amount, but that is down approximately 4%. I put in there just some sales trends analysis that we look at. And the first part of that is where you compare a property that is sold twice over a time period. You try to throw out anything that had changes made in between those two sales. And so they indicated with, looking at a period from 2023 to 2025, they gave us a 5.4% median indicated trend. If you just went to 2024 to 2025, of course, that reduces the number of sales dramatically. And that was about 5.3%. Then we looked at other ways of looking at sales trends. One was just comparing median sale prices. You see from 2023 to 2024, that indicated 6.67. 2024 to 2025, it was a 3.0%. And then if you analyzed, if you averaged it, it was 4.9%. Then we looked at, if you take that down to a sale price per square foot, because you have different homes, different sizes, you're assuming the same mix of homes under the median's price, the same mixture of homes is selling. So you take that to a square foot, you see the indication that there's 4.5% for 23 to 24, and 24 to 25 is 3.9%. I also included some other information that was out there on the internet. Now, this 2025 forecast for home prices from Wichita State University Center for Real Estate, they usually update. They haven't updated that this year, so this was a forecast done at the end of last year. So keep that in mind. I just put it there for further information, and they don't do for Leavenworth County, but they have one for Kansas City. It was 5.6%, and for Lawrence it was 3.4%. their forecast for all Kansas was higher than either one of those. But
Could you,
that was their
Bob,
forecast.
excuse me,
at that time.
could you go over that again, what you just said?
So the Wichita State Center for Real Estate does and you can find it out on the internet. They do some forecasting. They have some trends. You can look at a lot of different information on their site, but they usually do a housing forecast. But the most recent one that was out there was done last year, so it was forecasting for this year. It wasn't done with this year's data, so I wanted to point that out. It was the only information that it had out there, so where they did their forecast, and so they had a forecast their forecast for Kansas City was 5.6 for 2025 was 5.6%. Their forecast for Lawrence was 3.4%.
No, I got you. Thank
And
you.
they have one for all the other Kansas, and that was a higher percentage than either one of those. I did not put that in there,
Okay.
but
Okay. All right.
we're somewhere in between those two. But so there was the closest, so that's what I put in there.
Sorry,
It's
but
just
I should
it's just for reference.
I should have took this hearing aid out.
Okay.
I'm with you.
Should have taken it out.
Yeah.
Took it out. It didn't bother me. So, sorry about that, Bob. Go ahead.
And then I just put this Leavenworth County snapshot. This was, again, out there on the internet from Heartland MLS. This is Leavenworth County specific. And, these, it looked at median year-to-date sale price, 2024 to 2025. And they had 9.5%. That was just what it was. That fluctuates a lot, so I just put that out there. But they did have a little bit of other information. Percent of original list price was 98%. A few years ago when the market was hot, that was above 100%.
Yeah.
Average days on markets was 52. There was a time when that was less than 30. But those have gone up in the month's supply. It's 2.6%. That was as of September. They don't have a year-to-date on that. That's just a snapshot as at the end of September. They used to say a healthy market was 5 or 6 months, even market. I don't know if that applies anymore. We haven't seen that in quite a while, that kind of supply in quite a while. So that was what it was for Leavenworth County, at the rate of sales, the number of houses they had listed. And I forgot to mention, when I was looking at the median sale prices I did, if you look at for my 2025, I just used the year-to-date through August. When I did that, I don't have the complete end of the year. I'll rerun this again at the end of the year and that sort of thing. We'll continue to update it, but that's kind of a snapshot of what we see at this point.
Questions?
2 things.
Go ahead, Jeff.
So I hear a lot from people about how the value on their house is not fair. They think the county should write them a check if they think it's worth that much. So at the end of the year, your working year, don't you run a report to make sure that this state system of appraising every house to current market value the state makes the county use? You run a report at the end of the year to make sure that all the houses that actually sold are within a percentage of what you had that house valued for. Can you explain that a little bit?
Well,
Your compliance report to make sure that all your values are fair market value.
Well, yeah, we have quite a few reports we run. We're using those sales in our system to value other properties. Yes, and we do run reports against the sales also. We do that quite a bit often. We constantly, through our valuation process at different steps, and this kind of requirement is we test our values against the sales. ratio
the actual
studies
sales that have
periodically,
occurred.
yes, backwards. And then it's also tested once we set values forward the sales that happen after after January 1st through the end of December. That's also compared back, and we constantly look at that too. So we're constantly running reports against sales, property sales, with our values, whether that be the cost approach, whether when we do land valuation, the cost approach, when we do depreciation analysis, when we do our market estimates, we've been running reports constantly.
So you run a report at the end of your work year to make sure that all the values you have on everybody's house is matching what they're actually bringing when they're sold.
The ones that have sold, yes.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. That's the only ones you can
prices
use.
for
Is the ones actually sold. Right. Okay. And the other thing I had was the exemptions that the state just passed on the personal property. Have you guys calculated what impact that's going to make on the county budget as far as raising the mill levy to compensate for these exemptions?
It was roughly a little over, against the county mill levy, when they estimated last time, it was roughly over $100,000. And then that business machinery equipment would add roughly another $100,000. That just was taking the county mill levy at the time. I didn't rerun it with these numbers.
So about 20% or 25% of a mill is going to have to be raised to make up for another exemption that the state has passed.
These are not, problem with some of those personal properties, you can't get them all. You don't know all that exists unless you're, looking through people's barns, those sorts of things, because they're not all registered here. So it was kind of a fairness issue. And then the watercraft, they were assessed at 5%, so that was why they were done. Is kind of a fairness issue, and I think that's what they're looking at on the business machinery equipment. Also, is those who come into business and purchase equipment aren't paying it, but the guy that's been there and has equipment that's older than that, they're paying taxes on it. I think that's where this is coming from.
And I understand a fairness issue, but my point is this is how we got to 56% exempt for Leavenworth County. We keep adding just a little bit here and a little bit more and a little bit more. And now today it's added up to 56% of our county doesn't pay taxes. So here's another example, and it goes through relatively quiet. This just happened, and it wasn't in the paper. It wasn't a lot of people protesting, and it's like they downplay the importance of every little exemption. And I'm like, every time you add another exemption, that bill didn't go away. It means somebody else that's still paying taxes just went up. That's all I had.
Yeah. Good point, Jeff. Anybody else? Mike, did you have something?
I have about 4 things. Bed and breakfast and Airbnbs within the county, do you have a detailed list of those, or do you know where they are and can identify them?
No, we don't. They are, we can look, but they're, if it's a residential property, we have looked from time to time, especially because there's other buildings to identify like a secondary building on a parcel that we haven't identified and classified. But they are by law, they are praised as a house, as residential. They're valued according to market value, praised for what they are, but they're classified as residential. They're assessed at residential.
So if we were going to try to identify them, we'd have to kind of dig through the records to identify all of them.
Well, we'd probably have to go out to the websites and all that stuff. We don't have them documented on our system at all.
Okay. We had this SUP 2 or 3 years ago, and they brought all their watercraft over and we were thinking we were going to get a tax benefit from that. That's gone now.
Yeah. Yes.
Remember that?
I do, Mike. That hurts, Mike. I do.
That does hurt. How are utilities taxed, and does that money go to the state and then come back to the county, or can you explain that?
So utilities are assessed by law by the Director of Property Valuation Division. They value them on a state basis. They are then they certify those values by taxing district down to the county clerk. I never see them. They are, and they do that by the amount of investment. The utility companies report the amount of investment. They track all that, and so that's how they divide up that state value to the taxing units, to the counties, and then down to the taxing unit level. And those are certified to the county clerk. And they are assessed.
Does it come directly to the county?
What's that?
Does the funds come to the county,
Yeah,
or they go to the
county,
state and
yeah.
back to the county?
The values go to the county, and they get taxed and billed just like
So it
all
comes
the other
right
property.
right
So it
into
comes
the
right
county
to
fund.
yes.
And that's utilities would include railroads. And what about the solar? These solar facilities, are those also?
So they will be. They get first they get like a 10-year exemption, and then after that they will be taxed at the local level, because they're not a utility unless they are selling electricity to the customers. If they're selling them, to a utility, another utility company or whatever, they are locally assessed. They are not state assessed. That property is not considered business machinery and equipment as other. It's different. So whether or not they exempt business machinery equipment, that property will still be assessed and valued and taxed.
So when you say they're exempted, that's a state law that exempts them from that. Because we never exempted them when they put that.
For 10 years, yes. It's a state law. It used to be indefinite, but then they changed it sometime like in 2016, 2017 timeframe. They made it a 10-year exemption. And so they apply for exemption. The State Board of Tax Bills, is the ones that rules on it. And then they get exempted for 10 years. And then they go on the tax rolls.
So that's an auto exemption from the state. There's another one of your exemptions.
It's written in law, so it's not automatic. They have to apply for it and get it. But
the county doesn't have any say.
We
It's
really
just
don't. I do a recommendation, but we're just looking at, does it fit the law or does it not fit the law?
So, but once it comes back onto the rolls after the 10 years, what's the classification of it then, as far as taxes?
It'll be commercial.
It'll be commercial. So it will eventually come on the rolls as commercial, which
property,
is beneficial.
But yeah, it's a little different than your business machine equipment. So all the personal property will be taxed on that.
Okay.
It falls under a different category.
But they don't allow the counties to decide on the exemption on that. They just blanket exempt.
We have some power lines actually that run across from a wind up in East Kansas that they got under the lifetime exemption, so those will never come on the tax rolls. Even the power lines would be taxable.
But everybody'd like to have a lifetime exemption. So, last question is agritourism. Has anything changed in the law in the last session or the last couple of years? So. When we have an agritourism business, if they're selling, let's say they're selling pizzas and they're selling cereal malt beverages, is that commercial?
It's agricultural, so keep in mind the land for agricultural. The land is appraised according to the use value. It's not market value. It's just ag land. But so that would be the land underneath where they're selling this. Any buildings are all agricultural buildings are appraised at market value and assessed at 25%. All commercial buildings are appraised at market value and assessed at 25%. But you're looking at the buildings, of what they are, and appraising them, according to what they are.
So it doesn't necessarily make a difference what's going on there.
No, it's pretty close to the same. I mean, you're going to look at a commercial building as a commercial building when you value it. You're going to look at an agricultural building. You got to look at how it's built and how it's constructed. Agricultural buildings typically are, as compared to, usually you compare them to an industrial building, but typically are lighter construction, but not always. But you have to look at, what the building is and value it according to what the building is. The classification for buildings and for anything doesn't affect the valuation except for agricultural land. Classification is just telling us what assessment rate we're going to apply to it. You have to look at highest and best use when you appraise a property, except for agricultural land. You have to ignore highest and best use. Agricultural land is the only thing that gets a tax break under that system.
So on the Department of Commerce website, it's still stating that agricultural tourism entities have to comply with county zoning regulations. Is that your understanding?
I really don't know about that part.
Okay.
It's not my part.
All right.
And, it doesn't even have to be an agricultural activity. It just has to be an activity in a rural area to qualify for agritourism. So it could be a non-agricultural activity and it'll still qualify for agricultural use.
All right. Well, that's still kind of a murky topic, really. So.
Anybody else? All righty. Thank you, Bob. Thank you. EMS. Jamie, you guys come on down.
Morning, Commissioners. Third quarter report for EMS. I did bring Brian Bailey, Assistant Director, with me today.
Hey, Brian.
To highlight an activity that he kind of highlighted and took by the reins and did something worthy of coming in front of the Commission to speak on, and that's the VA claims and reimbursement. We're having issues with VA claims not being paid and not being paid in a timely fashion. We found out that they were not being processed correctly or according to federal law, and I'll let him speak on it here a little bit. But Brian worked with the local VA, kind of stale-headed a little bit. It went up to the regional level, district level. And then we reached out to Senator Moran's office, who's over the Veterans Affairs Committee. And we were able to receive some good news on that. We had some correspondence come back from his office that kind of stirred back down to district offices, regional offices, and such. We were able to collect $142,000 and $142,491 over 204 claims for our veterans here locally that were not being paid. So it kind of corrected a process and a problem that we were seeing in some of the claims that were being necessarily paid correctly, or they were being denied, or they were held up because of processes and such.
It's a shame you had to go that route to get it.
It was unfortunate, but I'm glad. I'm happy, and I wanted to kind of bring Brian in front.
Thank you, Brian.
And that's something big, I think, for our veterans and our constituents here that we're having that issue, and we were able to correct that for those veterans.
Great,
so,
great.
$142,000?
It was $142,491 over 204 claims. Okay. And that's also then moving forward, that the claims are now going to be processed appropriately moving forward as well. So that's just backlogging on there was 204 claims that were kind of held up in the system that were not being processed accordingly. So,
great.
I think that's a worthy note. Sometimes we don't always highlight those type of things, but I think that's something that should be brought out.
Work is going on behind the scenes.
Thanks.
Very good.
Brian, thank you very much.
We need to give you a jacket or something, I think.
Well,
you got a jacket.
I'm good. Thank you.
Back on the quarterly report, we are tracking as appropriate for our budget. Again, that's January through September, third quarter, we're about 70%. That's tracking exactly where we should be in our budget. Revenue, we're 102% in collections of revenue so far for EMS. Again, some of that is things like this where we're back collecting and getting caught up on some things. We also, at the end of last year, beginning of this year, we had two positions. That one was a business manager and another was a business clerk. So we had some training and down time that, so we're getting caught back up on some of that billing and such. So that's why we're seeing some of those, the revenue. And again, that's under Brian's leadership as well. He oversees that side of that. Statistics, I want to talk about statistics a little bit. Our call volume is on the uptick. We are running consistently now over 37 calls a day. We were running about 35 calls a day, but now we're about 37 calls a day every day. And as you can see on the run comparison chart on page 2 at the bottom, I take what we're currently at for January through September and project that for the entire year. And if we continue on the path that we have for the first 9 months, we're going to see an increase in calls, increase in transports for the 25 year end. So that is something that we are tracking. I track on a weekly basis, daily basis. We did hit a record just the other day. What was 56 or 7, something like that. We ran a 56 or 57 call day. And again, that's running with 5 ambulances in our county.
Tammy, why do you think that is? We're starting to tick upwards.
I'm sorry?
Why do you think that? What's the reason you think it is we're starting to tick upwards on those calls?
There's nothing specific that I can go in that it's any specific type of call, or it's just we're receiving more calls for service.
Okay.
On page 4 is the geographical location again of calls. Vehicle maintenance, we're on track with our vehicle maintenance, 55% expenditure for the year. Further updates, we've been working with the medical director changes over the last month. Staffing, one of the things that I wanted to kind of visit with, and I listened to the report or the commission meeting last week in regards from the HR about overturn, and I wanted to kind of bring those numbers back on what that did for us by increasing. Just putting into perspective, for 2023 in January, there was 4 positions open. In 2024 in January, there were 6 positions open. In 2025, 0. February 2023, 5. 2024, 7. February 2025, 0 positions open. And I just want to kind of highlight all the way down 2024. There was not a month in 2024 that I did not have less than 4 positions open. There was a 3-month period of 8 positions open. In 2025, January, February, and March, no positions were open. We had them all filled. We were fully staffed. April, 3 positions. By May, we were able to have them filled. So again, the max that was the max was 3 positions, but within the 30-day period, we filled them and had them back on. So when we address the pay issue, I'm not going to say it's a fix-all for forever. It did address the current need, and it allows us to get applicants in, and we can fill those positions, unlike what we saw in 2024, where we had positions every month open, up to 8 positions. In 3 months, we had 8 positions open those entire times. 8 positions is 80% of 1 shift.
And I'm sure you had some folks that were thinking about leaving, but when this came along, the thing, the county commissioner approved it, came along and stopped that.
So again, I just wanted to address that was brought up last week. And again, I appreciate the board's interest in trying to get that fixed. We can see absolutely that it did address what we thought it was going to address in availability. Even the position that I have open right now, I have a paramedic applicant that we're going through the process right now to fill that position. And we wouldn't have had that last year. I mean, we sat for months with no applications to be able to fill the position. we were losing quicker than we could backfill. So just kind of wanted to bring that up. Another thing that Brian is leading for us is in the Kansas City Metro, there's an app-based platform called Pulsera coming through. It's going to be a new patient tracking communication system. Currently, our way of tracking and communicating with hospitals is either radio or cell phone to the hospital. It kind of ends once we're done. We don't know where a patient's gone or whatnot. Hospitals and all EMS in the Kansas City Metro are going to go to this system. Part of that drive is also the World Cup coming in for next year to kind of help with the whole Metro in making sure that communications, ambulance routing, patient routing, things of that nature is all being the same across the entire region. This is also a Missouri and Kansas initiative to where all ambulance services and hospitals are going to be on the system. It's mandatory. It's not going to be. It's free to us. We don't have to pay for the app.
That was my next question.
Yep.
What the cost is going to be.
We do not have to pay for that. It's a free app on our end.
Good.
But it will allow us to track a patient from the field all the way to a hospital if they get diverted, or a patient goes to one hospital and then transferred to another. They'll be able. It continues down the whole process. So some of the information that we may lose on tracking somebody, whether information was wrong, a driver's license, insurance, as it goes through the system, we'll still be able, that patient, because we are part of that patient's record, we'll be able to get that information back as well to be able to continue with that individual. So that is that's coming down. And then the last is we do have a training administrator retiring at the end of November. She's been with us for 24 years.
Wow.
And she is going to be missed. Michelle Westfall is our training administrator. And I will put out to the board when that retirement is. So I would invite you all to come out to that retirement as well. We did go through the process, and by the end of the week, I'm hopefully able to announce the new training administrator that's going to come on and replace her and go to the interviews and such with HR as well. And we'll be able to move forward with that as well. Any questions?
Questions for EMS report? Mike?
Yeah, I do have some. How's the interaction with the new medical director going, and how's that process as far as working together? How's that?
We've gone through a lot of the paperwork and the administrative side. We're getting her set up on the QA side. Brian's going to be meeting with her to start going through that process. So, lack of a better terms, good so far. We haven't had any concerns or hiccups at this moment.
Okay. Now I'm going to give you a question that I get repeatedly over the last 6 years. Just to have your reaction and response, because it's one that keeps coming up again and again and again. Where a patient has been stabilized at a call, they question can they decide which hospital to be taken to by the ambulance within a reasonable distance within the metro, and what is the policy? And I've received just multiple complaints about this, because they go to the doctor at KU, but they're forced to go to Providence, and once you get in the hospital at Providence, it's really hard. I mean, then you are now a non-emergency situation, and it's hard to get moved to another hospital.
Well, first of all, Commissioners, we're an ambulance, and we have to provide care and get patients from the field to a hospital. The protocol, we've got a transport protocol, and it's transport to the closest appropriate facility to handle the situation. As I just stated in our report, our call volume is going up. I have 5 ambulances in this county. There's a number of times that we are trying to get patients from house to a hospital, and there's 3 more calls pending already in Leavenworth County. we can't afford to go to KU or to research or to Centerpoint on that extended period of time. It's already about an hour and 15 minutes per call, hour and 20 minutes per call, and we're talking about adding a potential of at least 45 minutes additional transport there and back into our system to be able to. We are an emergency service. We are not. If somebody can afford to bypass multiple ERs that can handle that issue, they probably didn't need to be in the back of the ambulance in the first place. They probably could have found a different modality to get to that ER. And just as you said, it's a non-emergency status. Is the problem of moving from one to another? It's the same thing. They probably didn't need actually EMS care in the back of an ambulance. And we are called to a number of calls that are low acuity that don't need an ambulance. We are out there for the 911 for life threats, and those are the calls that are the problem is when we are trying to get patients to the hospital of their choice or the hospital, we're missing time frames. You can look on page 3. We've increased almost 3% in calls that are taking us over 15 minutes to get to because, again, we're going to hospitals or we're out on hospitals or I don't have ambulances available to get to these patients that may have higher acuity where seconds, minutes count, and we're not available. We're almost to the point where I am going to be in front of the board asking for a 6th truck because, again, 37 calls a day, and we're not responding. Those numbers keep rising up, and that's going to be significant. So moving and taking patients even farther away, that's a problem, especially when we're talking about regional plans, our plans, medical plans. We need to take patients where they need to be and where they need to go. That's also a medical decision out on that scene. Sometimes patients don't, they want to go to somewhere. It's life-saving. I just sat in classes yesterday where someone had no idea what was going on with their heart. We took them to a local facility and saved their life because they probably wouldn't have made it past that facility. And Brian's our QA administrator. He can talk on that.
That's why the question I said where the patient's been stabilized. Obviously, if it's a life-threatening, you go the first place. But
we get into that argument as well, even out on, we need to take you here. And then, well, I went and we're trying to tell them even out on a scene, this is what we're seeing and this is where you need to go. There's medical devices and there's medical stabilization. There's medical things that are being done out on those scenes. And sometimes people get upset about that because they don't know. They don't know what is happening or what that medic may be seeing out on a scene. And we're trying to get them to the closest appropriate facility. We're one person in the back of a truck.
So if I'm in Linwood or I'm in Tonganoxie, the nearest hospital would be either Lawrence Memorial or
Providence or St. Luke's Legends.
Right. So,
but if it's trauma, then we have to go to level 4 or level 2 or level 1 trauma center based on criteria of what's happening there as well, which then may be Overland Park, KU, or Providence based on.
Well, I think what is happening here is we're getting into an area where patients like to make choices, and when they feel like they're not being allowed to make choices, then they're calling their elected officials, and maybe a conversation like this is good to have because you've explained it why we do and why we need to stay with the current system. But I just will let you know I get a lot of calls.
We do too. Believe me, Brian fields a number of those calls on a daily basis, probably that they don't understand why we had to go somewhere. But after some of the conversation, we had the same conversation we're having now. Some understand that, and then others probably will never understand it or they don't want to understand it. But again, I have to look out for all of the constituents within Leavenworth County. And while one person is being transported farther and there's somebody else having a heart attack, I have to answer for that as well, of why they didn't get an ambulance in 10 minutes or it took 30 minutes or 45 minutes for an ambulance to show up when they're having a heart attack.
So I think you gave a very good explanation, and I think it makes perfect sense. On another topic, I have an article here from the UCLA Health Magazine, and it says, I'll just read a couple excerpts. Pediatric chronic disease prevalence has risen by nearly 30% in the last 20 years. Researchers estimate about 25 million young people ages 5 to 25 are now living with a chronic condition or functional limitation. The prevalence of chronic conditions has risen to unprecedented levels over the past 20 years, with nearly 1 in 3 young people estimated to now be living with pediatric onset conditions that significantly impact their lives, new research suggests. And this is from UCLA Health Report, very reputable document. Is this something that our health department and our EMS folks are aware of? And is this something that is being talked about in the health community?
Commissioner, I'm obviously not prepared to speak on that. Right, that's not something I'm tracking right at the moment. But I can tell you that I have not seen an uptick in our pediatric EMS calls specifically. So it's not maybe 911, as you're saying, it's chronic health.
Yeah, it's
probably
chronic.
more in the clinic setting that physicians are reporting or are seeing long-term. But we're not seeing an emergent response on the EMS side. As we are not, at the health department, we're not a sick clinic, and we try to do a number of things in the community for tracking programs that can have better outcomes for kids and things of that. I don't have any statistics or anything with me today that can.
I just think that's something I read the article. I wanted to bring it to your attention that's an issue out there in public health. I just have 2 more things. Council on Aging, doctor's appointments. Do you work with them on any kind of arrangements? You don't work with the Council on Aging at all. Okay. Last question is, can hot peppers and chili cause severe problems?
If you're referring to EMS needs to be on standby for the chili cook-off, I'll be happy to stand by whoever's judging it and take.
You hear that, Bill? You hear that?
I was fed some chili last year.
I remember. I thought I lost you for 30 minutes.
It's going to be hotter this year, just so you know.
Well, then I'm going to put Brian because he eats all sorts of crazy hot stuff. So.
You may need to designate a taster for you, like the Kings used to have a taster.
That will be.
No, I told you not to do that, Mike. You did it. Anything else, Mike?
That's it.
Okay. Anything else on the EMS report?
Yes.
Vanessa, go ahead.
I could not disagree any stronger with Commissioner Stephen, as well as some statements that have been made by you. All it takes is a Google search for Providence or St. John Hospital as well. So let's just read some of those. Let's see. Worst emergency room I've ever encountered. Hospital is the worst, by far, hospital I have ever went to in my whole entire life within the 3 states I've lived in. Horrible, horrible, horrible. So this would be why people do not want to be taken. Yes, I have very personal experiences with these hospitals. As I've stated before, I'm 6th generation Leavenworth, and so I've had several family members die at Providence. I've had family members die because they started at St. John and were not given an opportunity to go to a hospital that was capable. So when we talk about taking them to a facility, it has to be one that's capable. St. John and Providence, that's not them. So people ask to go to KU or maybe St. Luke's because they don't want to go to die. You don't go to a hospital to die. You go to a hospital when you feel your life is at risk. So the patient needs to be able to make the choice of where they go, because if the choice they have is to go to die, that's no choice at all. In fact, in some cases, I think they'd just be better off staying home. So that's the situation that we're dealing with. It's extremely real. It's not made up or fake in any way. Just in the last 3 months or so, I've had to personally transport my mother twice because of this exact issue. If you're getting cancer treatment at KU, you can't go to Providence or St. John. You have to go to KU. If you're having an allergic reaction to your cancer, to your immunotherapy, you have to go to KU. We're talking about a partnership for pregnant women to drive 45 minutes to KU. But other people don't deserve to go to KU? Anyways, I digress. It needs to be handled. If it's a case of more ambulances, we need to get it figured out. It's not the county's fault that these hospitals practice the way they do, but the patients need to have the opportunity to get adequate care. The patients are the ones that are paying their insurance premiums. The patients are the ones that get a leftover ambulance bill. I've got them again and again. It's the patient's money. The patients need to go where they will get treatment to save their life. Unfortunately, my brother was not that fortunate. He was treated as a nobody, as many people are. So when he went to St. John's, and they can basically do very little there, so he went to Providence, and he was dead within 24 hours. You know why? Because that's the only option he was given. It's wrong. In my opinion, it's criminal, and it needs to be stopped. Thank you.
Can I address that? The reason I brought the question up is not because I support necessarily the current policy, but I've been getting so many phone calls on this from people that do not support the current policy. I specifically spoke to a gentleman in Tonganoxie that's under cancer care, and he had a heart issue and was transported to Providence when all of his doctoring, everything has been done at KU. In my mind, I drive to Kansas City all the time. It's 15 minutes down the road. It's not far. I mean, if these hospital facilities are in the metro area, they're within a reasonable amount of distance. So I do understand if somebody is under cardiac arrest, they need to get to the immediate facility. But if you've been stabilized on the scene, and that's why I asked the question, if you've been stabilized on the scene, why can't the patient make the decision? And I think he addressed the fact of the cost. And a lot of things around here come down to the cost.
Exactly.
And so it's something to be talked about, though. But I'm not a rah for the current policy. I just didn't want you to think that. So.
Anything else on the EMS report? Okay, moving on to the health department.
Again, we are on the budgetary side. We are tracking expenditures appropriately for the health department. User fee collections, I know that was talked about. Commissioner Stevens brought that up last time. Are we going to hit user fees? As you can see, we are right on track this year for actually hitting user fees that we were unfortunately not tracking the last couple of years. We were able to add in a new billing coder who is doing an excellent job for us of reclaims and claims and tracking down and making sure that all of our claims are being paid appropriately. We've also had somewhat of an increase in some of the insured individuals that have come out, so that has helped us in some of our user fee collections. Statistics, again, we're on track right where we have been for our statistics for the health department. We do have a child care surveyor, so I call the 2025 the retirement year for us. She's been with us for a long time. She's a senior child care surveyor out there. She's retiring in December. She was going to retire early, but she stayed on to help kind of with the transition and getting a replacement in and such, so she's going to retire in December. The Patagonia Health Records, we have a go-live switchover date for December 9th. We're doing training and such this month, and then the go-live, hopefully, for that will be December 9th. The WIC staff over the last was with the baby shower, and then we had, obviously, the switchover with the medical director, and again, we had the medical director and her PA out for 2 of the clinics already at the health department, and those went very smooth and very well so far, so I'm happy with that switchover.
Any other questions?
No.
Okay.
We questioned him out.
I know. Thank you, Jamie.
Thanks.
Commissioners, you don't need a break before we go on.
Let's have a break.
Okay, we're going to take a 5-minute recess. We'll come back here in 25 till. Okay, let's get started. Let's get started before Ed makes a speech. Community corrections. See you later, guy. Good morning.
All right, now we're ready.
Good morning. No, we're going to hold the questions today. Well, hopefully everyone's rested from their recess.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, we're rested.
Mike's rested.
Mike's rested. Mike needs a rest.
Got a second win. Well, everything in the second, well, we just started the second quarter, but for the first quarter is pretty much business as usual. We're on par with all of our funding for all of the grants and funding sources. Still haven't spent any of our 3-year funding for the mental health justice collaboration. Trying to make sure everything is in order before we start drawing down any of those funds. Got all of our other grants closed out from last fiscal year, and in case you didn't know, our fiscal year for community corrections, we follow the state, so ours started July 1st. So that's why I'm in my FY26.
Okay.
But yeah, pretty much business as usual, although I think last time I was here, I sat in front of you and said, as of today, I'm fully staffed, and as of today, I'm not. So,
How unstaffed are you?
we just have one vacancy. It seems like there's always one position we can't fill. I think in criminal justice and all government positions, anyone can work in any community at any time with these transferable skills, whether you're in local law enforcement or you're at the BOP. People go where the pay is and where the best benefits and flexibility are, and I think we continue to see people leaving for competitive opportunities over and over again. And I think I'm hoping that because there is uncertainty right now with shutdowns and people not getting paid, maybe we'll have some more applicants from the federal side and get this taken care of quickly, but here we are, new year, new vacancy. But otherwise, pretty much business as usual. We have more inactive and warrant clients than we typically do. Pretty unfortunate, but otherwise, our population as a whole on supervision continues to go up. I think that's pretty normal, just based on things that are going on in the community and in the world. When there's uncertainty, there's more crime. People are desperate.
So it sounds like, I'm sorry, David, it sounds like you're saying that because of the uncertainty of the what the federal government's doing now, shutdown, is that there is a great possibility that some more crime will be committed after that.
No, I don't even think it's the government shutdown. I think just uncertainty in general when, there's economic uncertainty, costs are rising, in general, there are issues with crime. We have been seeing crime even among youth rising astronomically. And I think since COVID and mental health issues have been skyrocketing with the youth, and crime is often tied directly to mental health and trauma. And these traumatic experiences or uncertainty and stress can trigger people to have behavior issues that often can lead to risky delinquent behavior and then criminal justice involvement.
I like the way you put that. It makes a lot more sense.
So,
what types of crimes have been increasing among the youth?
Honestly.
Yeah, honestly.
I think it's very difficult with all of the layers of supervision for youth in the state of Kansas. There's IIP, which is pre and post file like diversions, for lack of a better word, and then there's still diversion, and then there's a lower level, and then there's community corrections. And we're where you go at the highest level of supervision. And even with all of those additional layers of supervision, we're at 40 kids, and we only have the highest risk level of youth based on probation placement criteria, which takes into consideration their criminal history, but also their risk as an individual based on evidence-based risk assessments. And it's severe crimes. It's crimes that, person felonies, assaults, crimes involving firearms, crimes involving drugs. Unfortunately, there are sexual offenses. I don't have all of the specifics of what each of our youth is under our supervision for, but we are certainly seeing the intensity and the severity of the crimes increasing, which is also why we have seen an increase in our housed youth.
So when we house a youth that is, say, has a propensity to sexual crimes, and we house them with other youth, does that impact recidivism, and also does that impact, in other words, does crime breed crime?
Well, yes. There's actual studies that show every day that someone's in prison, they're more likely to go back, especially if you are mixing in general population, lower risk, non-violent, non-sexual offenders with high risk, violent, sexual offenders. There are movies on this, how people who have gone to prison for low-level offenses come out and they run entire drug cartels and kingdoms because it's the school of hard knocks. They go there and they learn to be 100%. They learn more ways around the system, what they should have done differently, and they now have a larger population of criminal peers who have more connections to higher level things. It also costs more money to send people to prison, and the outcomes are very poor, especially for low risk drug offenders or people who have not committed violent or sexually motivated offenses. And oftentimes these people who are low risk and non-violent, and specifically drug offenders, they have a better life in prison because they're fed and they have a place to sleep. And, we see this with youth as well. Sometimes, if not a lot of the time, even in beautiful homes where they're great parents, children are unintentionally traumatized, whether it's, because of, as adults, we use all of our emotional intelligence and patience for the people who are paying us. And oftentimes what's left for our spouses and our kids, we're very overstimulated. And we don't always show up at night and engage with our kids. We see that with these kids being raised by tablets and phones. And parents are just as disconnected from parenting. They're also on their devices and not having dinner around tables and having these conversations because we're constantly overstimulated and overconsumed with this device that causes more havoc than anything in this country. Because most of the risk for youth is now associated with having a phone. Kids are safer now than they've ever been, but they're struggling now more with mental health issues and early exposure to sexually explicit material and being groomed on the internet and exposed to material their young minds can't handle. And that's why you see crimes related to early sexualization and victimization, because they are no longer understanding basic human connection and compassion and empathy and understanding how, words and actions hurt people, because they're constantly behind screens. And that's why even people being desensitized to violence and violent language, hateful language, divisive rhetoric, it's so common because of keyboard warriors, and it plays an astronomical role in the mental health and the well-being in every community. And it puts us all constantly on defense and thinking that, their peers and authority figures in schools and parents, like, there's just this disconnection that ultimately breaks down the values and the good behaviors and their mental health and emotional well-being that could keep them avoiding the system and avoiding, early sexualization and these risks. And it starts often at home, like I said, and sometimes these kids being in the facility away from these devices and away from, the emotional needs that aren't being met and having that structure and rigidity, sometimes they thrive in those environments. And it's not because their parents don't care or don't have resources. It's just everyone's tired and exhausted and turning to these little electronics that actually do the opposite of what we need, which is human connection and compassion and empathy and conversation. And, it's just having all of the reverse effects. And we're seeing, I think, all of the effects of social isolation continue to wreak havoc on these kids that grew up in COVID. My kid was in a COVID kindergartner. I think I dodged a bullet, but for kids who were in middle school, who really needed that connection and were, going through those hormonal changes in puberty, they didn't get the same connections and wiring and when they were out of the classrooms and away from those peers and away from school resources with mental health. And you can see that on behavior and what's going on with the youth today.
So would you say social, like over the years, I've been here 6 years and I've asked the sheriff and you when you've come in about what's the indicators, and I think the sheriff said 80% of the folks have drug and alcohol issues. If you were rating drug, alcohol, and then the next, would social media fit in there as what's negatively impacting the youth nowadays?
Yes, 100%. I think that's in the top three because, they're getting more interested in alcohol and drugs and early sexualization and violence because of what they're exposed to on a daily basis. They have untethered access to material that is not suitable for children. And these children are extremely intelligent and they understand the ins and outs of technology and private searching and how to clear stuff. I think even the best parents who are able to keep their kids from it, if your kid's on the bus, someone else has a phone and is showing your kid. And unfortunately, I just think you can see how social media plays such a role, especially in these sex crimes where there's lewd material being shared amongst kids and the revenge porn and things being recorded on Snapchat, and then they feel like, well, this is my fault because I sent this picture or video and I'm ashamed and don't want to tell my parents. And then instead of talking to a trusted adult, they start to drink or engage in other risky behaviors. Sometimes it's the trauma that leads to the negative, risky behavior and that is manifesting, and we're seeing this superficial law violation, but underneath is a kid who was young, made a mistake, and that continued to snowball into a bigger issue where, they were just trying to numb their emotional pain and they had impulse control and had a lack of understanding that, one pill can change your brain chemistry, it can kill you. And that's really all it takes.
You think the rules and regulations and the state laws that have been passed that require that you have to be 18 years old for porn and for online gaming and gambling, is that are those effective in reducing?
If you can enforce them.
Yeah, that's the problem.
And so many parents aren't willing to look at their kids. And I mean, it takes effort to monitor your children's social media and to go through their phone. And so many people are like, the phones aren't the problem. The phones are literally the biggest problem. Mm-hmm. I agree with state laws where they're outlawing phones in schools. There are other devices where you can geofence and track your kid's location, including AirTags, including watches. Mm-hmm.
Well, when we were in school, if they needed us, if our parents needed us, they had the secretary come down and put a note in the teacher's clip on the door, and we had to call our parents at break.
And we still do that at the school. Just so parents know, the school still answers the phone and still contacts students.
You see, in states where they have implemented no phones in schools, you've seen an increase in behavior, an increase in attendance, an increase in grades and completing high school, credit recovery. You see a decrease in office referrals for behavioral issues. You see a decrease in suspensions, long-term expulsions. You see a decrease in the need for school-based clinicians. There's so many benefits, and over again, whether it's the Attorney General's office, juvenile mental health first aid, any of the trainings that we go through, that the phones are the problem, and people want to keep saying that they're not a problem, and they're absolutely a problem, because that is what normalizes these kids to drug and alcohol use and overconsumption and sexually explicit material, and gets them fixated on these behaviors that become problematic.
I wish the whole community could hear what you've said in the last 15 minutes.
That brings up a very interesting,
Go ahead.
What you just said, Commissioner. And I'm going to be probably devil's advocate here. I think I'm going to be called probably a lot of names for this. But I would like to get back to the report that we're here for, and set up another time that we can have Jamie come and we have a work session on exactly what you're talking about. I think there's more importance than we can put on it here in another session, another time, but in lieu of other people's time. I think we should get back to the report of today and not set another time to do it, but set another time to make that happen right here today for another work session that we can get together with Jamie. If that's okay with everyone on the commission, I'd like to go forward with that. I'm going to be called, you're not whatever, okay, for suggesting this, but I do think that we should.
Well, I tend to agree. We tend, not just this, but on other things, we tend to give a college presentation. Not that I disagree with anything that she said, especially, I would even say as far as the phones go, we got elections coming up. Talk to people running for election on the school board if they want to put that in. But I agree. We sometimes tend to shift. I tend to let it go for a while, but sometimes there's so much to get involved in that if we don't stay close to the topic, then we get off. Not that those aren't good questions, Mike, or Vanessa, or anybody else.
Well, this is her quarterly report. We don't get. She's not here every day.
Yeah.
And this is when we can address these issues.
Or either we can acknowledge that on certain dates, some people like her and Bill need a little bit more time on the quarterly reports and have them stand alone instead of just putting it up. I think what we're looking at is a time thing for everybody waiting around. I think is what Mr. Dove's getting on. But I have no issue with listening to you all day long about this stuff. Used to be my field. So and the information, I think you're right on the mark for a lot of it. But I think we probably need to take another look at it. But that's just my 2 cents. We can do it any way the commissioners want.
Thank you, Commissioner Stephen, for bringing these topics up, and thank you so much for your input. At the school district, we have taken measures with phones. I don't know if we've taken enough measures, but it immediately, made an impact, like you're saying. And I don't know if you disagree with it or not, but like I know my 7-year-old, second grade, knows how to clear text chat history, which is just crazy to me, right? Like I was nowhere doing that at 7, so it's a real thing. Thank you so much.
Well, that's true. And then being a grandpa, sometimes when I have trouble with my phone, I bring them in to get it running right for me.
They know more
So
about
I understand
electronics.
exactly what you're saying.
Oh, yeah. My grandson had the same phone that I just got for a while. So I was asking him how to use stuff on it, and he was getting frustrated. He was like, every time I'd ask him something, he'd go, and I said, you need to relax. I can teach you how to use a spoon.
That's right. I agree.
I just have one question left and this does nothing to do with phones, but any current law change or pending law changes that are going to impact community corrections?
No.
That's it.
All right.
I have nothing else other than in December, we have our next JCAB. I did put this on my quarterly report, and I had emailed Mark and Becky asking them to share. We have our education representative position is vacated. They resigned due to retirement. I have received one application, so at some point I plan to come back and ask for.
What is an education representative? What is it that it sounds great. What is it that they are accountable for?
Just coming to our JCAB, our Juvenile Corrections Advisory Board meeting quarterly. It's like the third Thursday of 1 month each quarter, helping advise on juvenile issues at the school level, what they're seeing. Schools are ground zero, and the statute requires that education be represented because it's so critical to the success of youth, and reducing their risk in the future for recidivism is to complete their education.
What is the qualifications for that?
Just somebody working in the county in education. It doesn't state whether it's secondary or intermediate, wherever, and the board gets to select that person. We market our applications to the board all the time, and then we specifically put on the website that it's vacant. I have also reached out and asked people for applications. I have only received one right now from the Dean of Student Success at KCKCC, who actually did grow up in the foster care system in Leavenworth, so he'd love to participate in the board and give back. And we've had Baser schools and Leavenworth schools represented. We have partnerships with all of the schools currently, and if no one else has anyone in mind, I would feel comfortable recommending the applicant we have, because one of our issues is I have grant money every year for continuing education, whether it's technical stuff at KCKCC. They also can assist with them completing their GEDs and enrolling in those technical programs, and I'd love to see that the funding that we get for continued education beyond GEDs and completing high school be utilized.
Does it require a degree?
It doesn't require a degree, just that you're in education.
Okay. And this one? No. That's anything? Jeff, Mike? Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was full of information.
Thank you, Jamie.
Walk-in library.
We really do appreciate your input.
Yeah, we do. Hey, Bill. Go right ahead.
On topic, Bill. On topic.
Yeah.
Not that you don't always put on
I
topic.
can wrap this up in 5 minutes.
Wait a second.
I said 45, right?
Okay.
So,
Okay, we're ready.
today for your discussion is a retention plan for the Road and Bridge Department. What I've prepared today, and I'll go through, is a performance plan analysis. At the direction of the Board of County Commissioners, the Human Resources Department, as you guys have heard twice already today, they've been tracking turnover rates. And what we have found over the past 3 years, it has become very clear that we are losing employees between 9 months and 5 years at a very high rate. This rate has fluctuated slightly over the years. I know there was a period in, I believe it was 2020, the end of 2021 going into 2022, where we actually onboarded 62 employees in a 6-month period. We did address that with some pay adjustments and try to retain some of those employees, but that has since quit working. An instance of this is that, again, this year, like last year, we will have 14 snowplow drivers in dump trucks that have never pushed snow before. And as you guys have seen in the past few months, the cost of this equipment has gone up exponentially. It's currently at approximately $390,000 worth of equipment that you are operating during a snowstorm. And we do operate 24 hours a day. So we'll have, during that first snowstorm, a half a dozen or more drivers at night that have never pushed snow before. And so there is a safety concern that can occur. And I know Commissioner Culberson's brought it up in the past. That inexperience results in accidents, whether that's slide-offs or tipping a truck over, getting off the shoulder of the road, maintenance issues, both to the equipment that we're using to do the snow removal, but also to the roads themselves. If you have a snowplow that's set incorrectly, you can peel off a lot of chip and seal. The track rock also is much harder, and it will burn up the snowplow edges. And so between that and just the general time, it's much slower when you're training new employees to do a task. I know last year we received a lot of calls about the gravel roads. There was a snowstorm that took us 3 days to get across all the gravel roads. I believe we had something like 18 slide-offs. We had to take the graders out and pull the dump trucks out of the ditches. Last year we had 12 new dump truck drivers, I believe. And continuing on, demonstrated on the following page is a summary of the current pay scale averages and the ranges and comparisons of surrounding counties, cities, private sector equivalent positions, information that I've gathered through publicly available sources. As you can see,
Bill, how do we train someone on that piece of valuable equipment to do snow removal? That's puzzling to me.
First, we start out by training them on how to. They'll get their CDL because almost no one that we hire has a CDL. And so the first step of the process is we have to have you take your written test for your written portion of your driver's license for your CDL training, and then we will allow you to ride with and drive with a trained CDL driver. We have trainers out there at the shop who are designated trainers through the Department of Transportation, and we have the federal program in place. So we'll train you how to run the dump truck, and then we will give you training on how to drive the snowplow, and then we'll have you ride with somebody. Hopefully we get the first snow of the year is not a large snowstorm, and we'll be able to do that mostly during the daytime, and hopefully we'll be able to do that with people riding with another person. But ultimately, there will be a day, or if you get a very heavy snow, that you're going to have your first days out there on the road by yourself, and it will be that snow rolling over your plow near whiteout conditions.
On a $500,000 piece of equipment.
Yeah, $400,000 piece of equipment. And it's not just the equipment cost, it's also the safety of both the driver and the traveling public. And you have to, it takes time to be able to learn the route, just the roads in general, where the curves are. If you get a snowfall like we had last year and the ditches fill with snow, you have to be able to get down that road and do the first pass without going off and getting a wheel off into a drop off or off on the shoulder and putting that piece of equipment into an embankment, or just getting it stuck.
All right, thank you.
So, as you can see, our staff falls below the mean in every comparison that I was able to find for salaries. anecdotal evidence being reported back to HR on their exit interviews, and the reasons given for leaving the county is that their employees are receiving, after they've received training from us, between $5 an hour and $14 an hour raises with various or comparable benefits. I was asked to address this issue, and so I am here before you today trying to do that. After reviewing a lot of the academic studies that are available out there in the public domain and on the internet, I found that it was the most effective approach for the type of environment that we are working in the road department to use a performance-based plan that really rewards both some tenure, but more importantly, cross-training and getting trained on all the equipment. Over the past 5 years, we've had a different operator in the chip spreader and the distributor, and as you guys know, we do millions of dollars worth of work in those pieces of equipment every year. Luckily, we've had for the past 6 years the same foreman on that crew. His last day is Friday, and so he is retiring. And so as we lose that institutional knowledge, 28-year employees, 15-year employees to retirement, like we did yesterday, we have to have what information we can be consistently passed on from one employee to another. We do send employees to training every year in Illinois at our facility for our equipment, but nothing is as good as multiple years of experience on different temperature conditions, different road types, and just general application of the equipment. I can quickly run through the performance plan if you'd like, or I could stop here and take a few questions.
Run through.
Go ahead, Mike.
No, I don't have any questions.
Really?
Okay.
Jeff?
So what the proposed structure of the pay plan would be was we would create a new job description of a trainee. Currently, we hire in employees as heavy equipment operator ones, and then they start into their training for their CDL immediately. So under this new structure, from your start date to year one, you would have a new job description of a trainee, new hire with no CDL requirements. In order for you to fulfill the trainee requirements, we've used a matrix that had been used in the past 15 years by KDOT, and we looked at some other private sector matrix formulas. So you would have to have a minimum of 1 year of experience, a valid CDL Class B, and a minimum of 160 hours of documented flagger duty signed off on by the supervisor. So each step you will see that the employee has an onus to create the documentation. We will provide them spreadsheets, but they will need to keep a 3-ring binder. So if you go out and flag for a day, that supervisor needs to sign off on your 8 or 10 hours of experience for that, and you need to keep that record. We are not keeping that record for you. And so you need to be able to compile this record as a part of your employment. If you're a heavy equipment operator 1 and you fulfilled those requirements with a minimum of 3 years of experience, a Class A or Class B CDL, a minimum of 40 hours of documented supervised operation on at least 4 different pieces of equipment, with at least 2 of them being the mower, the distributor, the chip spreader, or the backhoe, and also no disciplinary actions. What's not included in this plan that will be included in a final plan is also some language regarding no-call, no-shows, or other type of disciplinary action. Specifically, this is referring to, I'll use the example of if an employee is found to be not flagging correctly, and say he's sitting on his tailgate or something, or in his cab of his truck, leaning into the cab, looking at his phone, and it gets found out, documented. That will add an extra requirement of at least 40 hours of that machine operating equipment time or flagging to that requirement. Heavy equipment operator 2s also would need to have completed their OSHA 10-hour training. They need to present a safety topic at one of our monthly safety meetings and have that approved in advance and signed off on after the presentation by the assigned safety officer for the department. And they need to independently be able to set up a traffic control situation for a road closure, whether that's a partial road closure in a chip and seal situation, or that is a full road closure with the appropriate signage for a culvert replacement. But they need to be able to do that independently without the direction of their supervisor, who could be on vacation or have a sick day or be assigned to other jobs. But to be competent and be fully trained, you need to be able to do that as a heavy equipment operator too. What we have put forth through year 0 to year 3 is that more or less it takes you 3 years of working there before you are able to have a well-rounded experience on multiple pieces of equipment that we use on an annual basis, and also have the knowledge for safety and for traffic that would go forward. After year 3, we consider you should be fully trained. Moving forward, you should be working towards training other people. So we've created the heavy equipment operator 3 position that we currently have, but what we have set up is a defined path to get from a trainee from a 1 to a 2 to a 3. And so a heavy equipment operator 3 must have 5 years experience. They must have completed the level 2 requirements or equivalent if we were to hire someone from the private sector, which has not been the case in the past 5 years. I don't believe we've hired anyone with that level of experience from the private sector just because of the wage issues that we've had. They must meet at least one of the following criteria: served as a crew leader, public works safety officer, or CEL trainer for 1 year, or have logged at least 160 hours of supervised operation on 4 pieces of equipment with a list of specific types of equipment that they need to have worked on. They need to demonstrate a competency and approved by a supervisor in reading grade, specifically for culverts and ditch grading, and measuring and analyzing road conditions. We should be able to send this employee to look at work orders and have them report back with accurate information. Supervisor training in harassment prevention, leadership, or other approved courses by LTAP would need to be completed. They would need to be capable of calling in all their own utility locates for any culvert replacement or digging or sign that needs to be placed in the right-of-way. They need to be able to use Word and Excel and operate in the Microsoft suite. And they need to be able to assess documents on the county server in our work order systems, be able to access maps for snow routes, and be able to access some of that information that they should have, by 5 years of experience, been able to acquire. And at the point that you've been a 5-year employee, you need to be capable of working with younger employees or newer employees to work through equipment operator 1, 2, and 3 levels. I'll stop here again and see if you have any questions.
Good, Mike.
Did you consider incorporating any kind of incentives for progressive years into it?
So we researched that extensively, and we put the milestones for required minimum amounts of experience into these pay increases. But as far as a bonus system, what I found looking at a lot of academic research that had been completed in the past was that those type of incentives generally work best for a highly skilled specific position where you're going to take years of training to get a person into one role, and then once a company has spent that investment in training for multiple years in a single specific role, they want you to stay in that role for the next 20 years. What we need is a well-rounded path that incentivizes people to take some initiative and work on bettering themselves at all aspects of what we do for road maintenance so we can be more efficient as a staff. What I don't want, what I'm not here before you today to do is have 10, 15-year employees with Class B CDLs and no ability to operate a backhoe or other machinery. While I always encourage people to come out and do a good job for us, we need people who can fill all of these voids that we have that have been created through retirements and experience moving on. I believe we had 33 employees with less than 3 years of experience. So 65% of the staff has less than 3 years experience. And so we don't even have a large number of staff members currently that have what we consider fully trained. And so what we need to do is get these guys fully trained, and then we need to pay them to stay. We need to pay them enough money that they aren't just immediately jumping to the private sector and taking those other jobs. And what I don't need, unfortunately, is a 12-year employee with a Class B CDL who can cross-train or set up a flagging operation. I do have a few employees who have been there for 10 years that I don't know that they are capable of doing that at this point. This would create a path for them, and part of it is you need a defined path in order to give a person initiative. And this would create a path for them if they want to be paid more and move up through the organization, that they could learn how to do some of these things and work on doing that. But it is not based on necessarily just longevity. It's based on performance with some longevity matrix worked into it.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So,
Well, Commissioners, I think you probably have you got an idea that Bill's put a lot of work into this. You know what the challenges that we've had. You've heard him up here several times. And everything else is in writing here. So I think really the question is, one, we have a plan that we think will help us to retain employees. But Bill, can you go over the cost and how we're going to cover the cost?
Yeah, so total cost of this, if we look at, we went through every single employee in our organizational chart that would be eligible for this. This is just local service and road and bridge employees at this time. The entire Public Works Department is not all under road and bridge or local service and is not a heavy equipment operator. And so it would be paid for from those funds through prioritization of some of the funds from the chip and seal, with any remaining funds that we would need would have to be used from periods of time where we don't have employees. So unfilled positions have created some savings because you budget for that position to be filled all year. And so anytime we have an unfilled position, that money is still sitting in the personnel line item, which we do have that money remaining in this year's budget from multitude. As you can see, we've hired at least 15 employees in the last year. I think we've actually, I don't have that spreadsheet in front of me, but I think we've hired 19 or 20 employees in the last year. So all the times that those employees' positions weren't filled, we have those funds as well. So there is a way if we do that. We also, as we gather experience, if we retained employees, we should become more efficient over time. Total cost of this is $409,000 currently. If you take the salaries, which I believe total across all 45 or so, I don't have the specific number of employees, was approximately $155 an hour. You take that, and then you add your KPERS and your workers' comp and your Social Security payments and everything on top of all of that. The total cost per year at the current employee pool that we have was $409,000. Rounding up, I think it may have been like 400 and some change, but it was just over 400,000.
And that's with all the benefits and everything included.
That's all in. Yeah,
so it doesn't count later what the county's going to have to pay on this. County's going to have to pay on that.
That's all that included. It also included, we budget for 65 hours of overtime per employee for snow removal, or if
Okay.
Are trying to finish off an oil tanker for chip and seal. So yearly in our budget that you guys see, we have 65 hours of overtime for each employee factored in. So this was also, that number that I provided also included that 65 hours of overtime, what this additional cost would be.
So where within your budget you've got the unfilled positions? Where else in the budget are you getting these funds?
Well, some of it will come from the trap rock line item, or the aggregate line item that trap rock came out of instead of haydite. That savings from 2024 was $1.2 million, and that is more or less. As you saw today, the cost of trap rock had gone up a little over 10% since that period, but 10% of what we pay is still a significant savings of over $1 million. So we have that money that we would reallocate plus the salaries.
So,
Commissioners, it would have to come from projects, reduction of projects or reduction of the use of materials. It's an operational expense, so it has to come from operational expenditures that we already have. We're not proposing to increase the budget because the budget's already been approved. What Bill's proposing is to reprioritize the money. And he believes, and I would agree with him, that the reprioritization of this is more important to the county than just continuing to dump money into some of these other projects if we don't have the staff to do it correctly. We think
so we're talking about a project or two being pushed back on the CIP. Is that what you're talking about?
CIP is different funding. This is more operational. This is the chip and seal that they do in local service, or the rock that we're putting down here right now.
So that savings from that trap rock in fiscal year 24, that was carried over then onto the 25 budget. How did that?
We didn't lower the budget, right? So when there was the $1.2 million savings, we didn't lower the budget. We just put more money into expendables like rock and oil and so on. So some of that would then get readjusted back off of there and put into the wages.
Okay, so some of the money from that you had allocated, you're going to pull that off.
We didn't really reallocate any funding, so we took a flat line item across. So whatever the 2024 was, the 2025 became, and so we didn't ask for any increase. All the additional funding, we rolled the money into equipment reserve that was remaining from 2024 towards projects in the future. We left the line items exactly flat in 2025, and increased funding went to bridges. And so what we would do is we would reallocate funds from some of those savings and from these unfilled positions in order to cover that cost.
Well, it sounds like you have a plan.
We have a plan.
No, I think it's awesome that you found a way to save costs and now we're putting it into staff. I mean, I think that's beautiful.
Yeah.
So to sum it up, we're not paying our people enough to keep them, so we have to hire new people all the time. We hire new people. They make mistakes, like scraping off $1 million worth of chip and seal. So the cost you spend, or the money you spend here, will save you from having those costly mistakes.
I think it will also help with public trust. A lot of the complaints I got while I was door knocking for my campaign for this seat was the lack of experienced staff, revolving kind of around the county shop situation and equipment and everything. So
exactly,
I hope that it will help with that.
Staff's what makes it go. I've always said that. I always found it to be true. You put good people around you, you take care of them, you look good. Vanessa, I think you're right on point with that. Will, did you have anything on that?
No, I do not.
Okay, Mark, what do you have on this?
Nothing today. This is just a presentation. We will put it on the agenda for your formal approval.
Okay, good. Thanks for all the homework, Bill, and your staff did, and HR.
All right, thank you.
Bill. Checks in the mail.
Checks in the mail, he said.
Checks in the mail.
Willie signed it.
Thanks, Willie.
Try cashing it.
B-ball time. Jeff?
You ready?
Yeah, let's do this.
I move that the board recess for a closed executive meeting to allow the commission to discuss the contract of the county administrator, which is private personal matters related to a specific non-elected employee in order to protect the privacy, interests, and individuals discussed as permitted under COMA, Kansas Open Meetings Act, and that board resume open meeting at noon, 12?
Yeah, let's go. That's good.
At 12 o'clock.
Half hour.
In the meeting
I'm
room,
not sure.
board. In the meeting room, the board. President in the executive meeting will be Commissioners Smith, Culberson, Reed, Dove, Stephen, and staff designated by the commission to be present to participate in the discussion.
Second.
Motion second. Discussion. Mr. Reed.
Aye.
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 There he goes again. Go ahead, Jeff. Oh, yeah.
Let the record show the board has returned to regular session at noon. No action was taken. No decisions were made. The subject was limited to matters related to specific non-elected personnel.
Okay, good. Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I move that the board recess for a closed executive meeting to allow the commission to discuss the contract of the county administrator, which is private personal matters related to specific non-elected employee, in order to protect privacy interests of the individuals discussed as permitted under Kansas Open Meetings Act, and that board resume open meetings at 12:15.
Yeah, that's fine.
In the meeting room of the board, President and executive meeting will be Commissioner Smith, Culberson, Reed, Dove, Stephen, and staff designated by the commission to be present to participate in the discussion.
Second.
Motion second. Mr. Reed.
Aye.
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 Aye. Did I catch you at a bad time there?
Time now.
Ready?
Thank you, sir. Go ahead, Jeff.
Let the record show the board has returned to regular session at 12:15. No action was taken. No decisions were made. The subject was limited to matters related to specific non-elected personnel.
All right, we're ready to go with the work session.
No, we got to complete
No, we
this
gotta
meeting.
conclude the meeting.
I bet you would. Get a motion.
No, I have a couple of questions.
No, we don't want any more.
No, it has to be.
Okay, go ahead.
We talked a couple weeks ago about the individual funds being set up, and that's going to have to be in a resolution, or what do we have to do? Are we moving forward with that?
Yes, I'm working on that, Commissioner.
Okay. Second thing, the food drive. Where are we at on that?
Yeah, I've asked a couple staff members to try to coordinate that. I asked the public information officer in the county attorney's office and Stephanie in the clerk's office to help coordinate that. Stephanie's tied up right now with all the election and stuff that's going on, but Micah did say that he'd be working on it, trying to coordinate that.
All right. It looks like the shutdown's going to go on.
I see it stopping.
So when do we review? When's the next? Is it quarterly we review the open positions, or is it twice a year? I don't know.
Twice a year.
Twice a year. So when will the next milestone for that be?
I believe per policy it's in December.
December. Okay. Thank you.
Jeff?
Nothing.
Vanessa? Do you have anything? I have nothing. Okay. Now we can get a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Commissioner Reed?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.